Located along the banks of Old Man River below the city of New Orleans, we find Plaquemines Parish, a delta land more fertile than any land on earth, which today can be considered one of the richest 100 miles on the North American continent, abounding with natural resources such as fur, fish, oil, citrus fruit, and sulfur.
Plaquemines Parish, we have supported this country for a long time with oil and gas. Through the oil and gas company that was digging canals and bayous to try to get this oil and gas to support United States. And that's what caused a lot of the problems that we have now. So hopefully the rest of the United States, that they realize the importance that that Plaquemines Parish had played on this country. My name is Carlton LaFrance, council member of District 7, Plaquemines Parish government. You know what these companies do. They come in and they come to your community and they pacify the people, they pacify the community that I represent. They come in and they always talk about jobs, jobs, jobs. But we've been arguing and fussing for jobs since the 50s and 60s, and now we're in 2021 and what we still arguing about? Jobs.
You know, the Mississippi River is a huge economic driver for the U.S. and for Louisiana, and so we have a lot of industry that exists along the river. We have coal terminals, and one thing that has been proposed in recent years is the Plaquemines Liquid Terminal, which is a liquid storage facility. This is right where the Mid-Barataria sediment diversion is planned to be. This is one of the premier projects in that 2017 Coastal Master Plan.
The Mid-Barataria sediment diversion will essentially cut a hole into the levee around the Plaquemines Parish town of Ironton, southeast of New Orleans, and channel part of the river's flow into Barataria Bay. The diversion would build as much as 27 square miles of new land in the Barataria Basin by 2050. Louisiana has lost about 2,000 square miles since 1932.
The sediment diversions are really to reestablish our connection with the river to our basins. When we look at all the tools in our toolbox, the sediment diversion reestablished that root connection with the river and the basins, and also taps into a brand new sediment source that's not being utilized right now. One of the biggest benefactors in this are going to be the folks that are closest to the project right there. So one of the biggest components is putting the green space in front of the levees or protecting those investments in terms of storm surge and also knocking down the waves. So those are going to be some of the biggest benefits for the town of Ironton.
The people in Ironton are really caring, loving people.
This is one of the oldest black communities in Plaquemines Parish.
The best thing is that you can raise children back here without them getting into trouble.
I was born in New Orleans, but I lived here in Ironton practically all my life. My childhood was every street here in Ironton.
It wasn't a rich community, but if you want to say we were rich and, you know, it just people had a lot of different characters in this community, and we were rich in that way.
Ironton is a quiet, peaceful place. Everybody around here know each other. Everybody around here trusts each other.
A lot of the cousins and stuff that I hang with now outside of here, we all grew up in that same yard down the street.
Home. Ironton is home to me. We've been fighting all our life for things that we got back here. Nobody gave us nothing without a fight.
Ironton, a hamlet in Plaquemines Parish. Population 200, all of them black. Its one distinguishing feature, Ironton has no running water.
Do you think Charlotte would have had water to Ironton if there were one white family living in Ironton? There would have been water.
As a child, I had to go to the river, Mississippi River, and get water and bring it to my mom. Race have always been a problem in this parish. This is one of the most segregated parishes. It done got a little better, but not behind the doors, no.
PLT, Plaquemines Liquid Terminal, is going to be built on the St. Rosalie plantation. They are planning on putting storage tanks there where they can store different type of crude oil on stuff on that basis. And that project have some controversies on it.
I'd like to call this meeting of the Plaquemines Parish Council, serving as the sole governing authority of the Plaquemines Port Harbor and Terminal District, to order at 3:01 p.m. Commissioner Kognovich.
That site was a St. Rosalie plantation. It was a black-owned plantation. Sold it around 1880. Had slaves in a slave graveyard. And out of them 12,000 artifacts, I heard they had human remains found in it. So that's why we wanted to hurry up and get it to UNO so nobody would find that?
No, because I sent all the remains to the entire board months prior to actually voting on it. So all of you had the list of remains.
So what is the procedure we have to follow when we find human bones on a site?
We followed it. We made sure they're curated, and that's why we're working with UNO to make sure they're curated, sir.
As far as I understand, I think human remains are not supposed to be curated but reinterred on site.
My question is, if human bones were found on the site, and that site is in my district, why wasn't I notified?
A very a touchy subject. I think in the future, it'd probably be prudent to flag something like that, not have it buried in a 200-page attachment. It kind of boggles the mind that we wouldn't have had a discussion or a specific meeting around something like that. Things of that nature put a complete stop to projects like PLT. And I'm a little surprised that the board wasn't apprised of that, how big of a deal that really is from the very beginning.
There's a Norman's map from 1858 showing all of the cemeteries from New Orleans, Louisiana to Natchez, Mississippi. And I took it upon myself to count those one day. And between large and small land holdings, there's nearly 1,000 plantation sites. And if you think about that for a minute, if it was a large home, it would have had a burial site for the family and then a separate burial site for the enslaved persons. Now, if you think of nearly 700 to 1,000 burial sites or land holding sites, how many burial sites would that be that we don't know about?
There's always something trying to be put around Ironton. Sometimes things are kind of blacked out from the view of the public while maybe projects are being considered. You know, when you add this other layer that even the people that represent you aren't getting the full story all the time, that in and of itself makes it harder too. I mean, you could see into the window here how democracy is just short-circuited for economic gains, and it repeatedly happens.
Economically, the parish sometimes act before they think. And there's a lot of things that's being done behind our backs and under the table that's not being presented to us in the right way. And that's why you see a lot of people that's from this community always on the defense. You know, we're always on the defense because you can't trust anybody. And that's because of the prior administration that we had to deal with in the past.
Judge Leander Perez is the undisputed boss of Plaquemines Parish, south of New Orleans. Workhorse. And Plaquemines Parish is the undisputed repository of some of the densest accumulations of oil and sulfur deposits, from which we can infer the obvious. that Judge Perez, in addition to being a very successful politician, is a very wealthy one. I should like to begin by asking Judge Perez whether he distinguishes between his views on segregation and those of Governor Wallace.
I am against the federal government using its coercive power to force racial integration upon an unwilling free people.
What I know about Perez is he was able to acquire vast tracts of land around the parish and funnel that wealth to his company. You know, this is all well documented. He ruled this place sort of with an iron fist, depending on who you were. During integration, Perez had these academies pop up overnight. If he was required that the schools had to be integrated, he just propped up these private schools. And so over a long summer, slabs were laid, metal buildings were put up, and oak trees were planted, and they had 6 of these things or so around the parish. That's sort of the backdrop of what's been going on here for a very long time.
Why would the parish, knowing that it has a cemetery, knowing that it was a historical site? I don't know why they didn't consider that also, and I just felt like they wanted to just put a dollar before humanity or concern of the people.
They were hoping that we wouldn't even read the archaeological report and just kind of let it go by the wayside.
There's a good reason for us not to trust this parish. I don't know why Ironton is so important for them to try to put everything here. There's like tons of land further down that they can do the same thing and not affect or not bother anyone. Or you put another plant here and then put another one below us. I say all of them have spills that are leaks that we never know about, and they have them at the same time. Then what are we supposed to do?
This week we are planning on going visiting the site. And we had set up a meeting in Ironton where we had met already with the people from PLT. And now this Friday, we are going out and we're going to do a field visit.
A couple things real quick before we head out. We've got a beautiful day here, and thank you all very much. As I want to continue to reiterate, thank you so much for your participation. I'm very excited about this, to be able to learn more about the history, to see the site, to learn from all of you, as I've been talking with many of you already. This is awesome. I'm excited to hear more about the history, learn about the history, and as we've said all along, preserve and protect it. We have every intention of doing that and want to make sure that we honor those and that history and that past.
we planned this trip and y'all knew we was coming out here, why y'all didn't try to cut the grass?
I'm from Colorado. I didn't know what the site would look like, but nonetheless, we could certainly schedule another trip to see it.
It's not prepared for people to come and see.
Okay. Right here.
This is the natural state of what the site was when we originally came out here.
I understand that. I understand that. But the natural site, when you first came out here, you didn't expect to bring citizens out here. Come do observations. It's kind of hard to do observation when the grass is not cut.
All right. So where we're standing right now is pretty much dead center of what we found to be the workers' quarters / slave quarters area. In this area, this is where we found the majority of the 13,000 artifacts that we collected, ranging anywhere from pocket watches to kitchen utensils, a lot of porcelain plates.
Most of the excavation area is on the north end, especially in the early phases. What happens long term, I guess that's part of these discussions that we're having as to how we, again, preserve, protect what the history is here. But certainly the initial phases of any development would happen up on the north end, up near the refinery area.
Speaking to the people that is here, they would prefer to end this tour and wait until this site is better prepared. Again, we have elderly people in here, and this is not a safe environment. So the people that is here behind me, they would like to end this tour now.
The least we can do is just cut the grass so when they do come and see, they get a better picture of how you really feel about it.
Sure. No,
you know, if they come out here and see all the grass, the first thing they say, well, they don't really care about us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, believe me, sir, I would have, had I known the
I'm just
turnout we'd have
I'm just
today.
saying, I'm just being honest with you. I'm just being honest with you. I'm just being honest with you. And the other thing is, before we make any decisions, I want to make sure all the relatives that I talk to get an opportunity to have a say on what happened, because my relatives here, but there are a lot of family relatives here.
Sure.
So I don't make no decision as to what you're going to do until we talk to all the relatives.
The old folks that was buried up there and been up there in their grave for all this time can't speak for themselves. So we's trying to convey our voice so that our elected officials today supposed to be living in a civilized generation act like civilized people.
And now you trying to hold on to what's left of your deceased relatives and your deceased parents, and somebody want to come and take it away from you? That's not right.
That dock, that terminal there, would have made the mid-Barataria sediment diversion something like 17% less effective.
This project were put in place if you had ships docked there regularly, could severely reduce how much land one could build. And then you're just leaving the area more vulnerable over time, including the Plaquemines Liquid Terminal itself becomes more vulnerable as the land around it disappears.
Right now at 6 o'clock, sandbags and supplies, an all too familiar sight along the Gulf Coast during hurricane season. This time it's southeast Louisiana making those preparations as Hurricane Ida gains strength.
Ida continues to strengthen this evening. All signs indicate this will become a major hurricane on its trip to Louisiana.
Ironton was totally devastated. We had anywhere from 12 to 15 feet of water.
We left for the storm, and in the back of my mind, in the back of everybody's mind, was wondering if they're gonna come back and find their homes intact, because the way Hurricane Ida had to testify, and we saw the pictures on TV, and Ida was worse than Katrina and Ida at the devastation that we saw.
One day it's like going from paradise to hell. Pretty much like going from paradise to hell.
Let's face it, the reason why we got the water is because we didn't have the levee protection. And all this is man-made problems. All this is man-made problems. Plaquemines Parish was built up on nutrient and silt that was coming down the Mississippi River. Man came and built levees. They built levees, but however, they didn't provide the water to maintain our marsh.
So now you see the graveyard a little bit. And once we round the corner, you're gonna see some more caskets sitting down on the ground. Just caskets, they bust out of their tombs.
The most heartbreaking thing was, more than anything was, to see our relatives coffin floating in the water, and the tombs that they were housed in. Some of them was demolished, other were damaged, and we realized that the storm, not only did it affect us mentally and spiritually, but it also affects us emotionally, because when you bury somebody, you bury them and put them to rest.
Man. Oh, something bigger wanted more than us to allow stuff like this to happen when it happened before and over again, and they did nothing to protect us.
We cannot keep on doing the same thing and expecting a different outcome. I think they should rebuild because it's home. You know, you always hear people saying that the people from here are resilient, but my people are tired. My people are tired.